All right, 3 strategies for improving your potty training protocol with your dog or puppy. So, 3 things: jogging, movement to encourage bodily functions; longer leash to encourage the shy bladder; and knowing when to move and when to stay put with your dog. So, jogging, that is very useful for dogs when you can sometimes just tell that your dog has to go, but they're not going. And a lot of dogs have different types of tells, like they sniff in a certain way, they circle, or they walk slowly, or whatever. They have their different tells. But a very common tell is that dogs will hunch their back a little bit. Sometimes it's more severe, sometimes it's not. But almost always, if your dog's doing any kind of hunching, they actually need to poop. But they don't always poop. If you stand outside for 5 minutes, they won't necessarily poop just because they have to poop. But we want to encourage them to do that so that they don't have to do it when they get back in the house. So jogging, sometimes even for just 15 or 20 seconds, and I just do that out in front of the house. I just go back and forth for 15, 20 seconds, sometimes a minute. And just that movement encourages the bodily functions to happen. So a lot of times with dogs, if I can tell, like if they're puckering or if they're doing the back arch, or if I just feel like they really need to go and they're not going on their own, I'll just jog for a short period of time and then go back into the grassy area, and they will go relatively quick, like within 30 seconds typically. The other thing is the longer leash. So we typically have a 6-foot leash, and that's what we recommend for most everything. But we use longer lines for when we're working up to off-leash obedience and things like that. Those longer lines, like a 15-foot line, are sometimes good for dogs who maybe have like a shy bladder, dogs that don't necessarily feel comfortable going with you standing right there, or if they are conscious to leash pressure. Maybe they're just, they get really into trying to find that right spot, and they're following a scent, and they get to the end of the leash and it just kind of throws them off, right? It kind of throws them off their game. So if you have a little bit longer leash, you can still, make sure your dog is focused on the task at hand. They're not just roaming freely, because they can get distracted and doing all kinds of other things and playing, and not even think about the fact that they have to go, or not think that they need to do it right now. Just like a little kid gets caught up watching a movie or playing a game, or they don't want to miss out on something, so they don't remove themselves from that thing to go to the bathroom until they're going right in the house, not where they're supposed to be going. So have them on a leash when you're potty training, to make sure that you can keep them focused on, this is the thing we're doing, we're not playing, whatever. But a longer leash sometimes is good for those dogs who seem concerned about you, or maybe they get, they break their focus every time that they pull on the leash or whatever. Having a little bit of extra length will help with that. And the other thing is knowing when to move and when not to move. So most of the time, my recommendation is to find your spot that you want to go, and we go to the same area every time we take dogs out. So we have a specific poop area, not the whole yard. And I just stand there, right? So the dogs have, typically I've got my 6-foot leash, so they have a 6-foot radius. Like, that's your area to go to the bathroom. If you give them more space, they feel like they need to utilize more space, or if they're looking for just that right spot, the bigger area you give them to cover in finding that right spot, the more time they will take. And sometimes that's another thing that will cause hindrance in your house training progress. If your dog is outside, like trying to find just that right spot for a couple minutes, and they get distracted, and then they spend a couple more minutes trying to find just that right spot, and then they go back inside, well, they never found that right spot, so then they go in the house. So limiting the area that they have will reduce the amount of time it takes them to find the right spot, right? Now, generally, that's just kind of the rule of thumb that I follow. Go to a spot, stand there, they have a 6-foot radius. Like, that's it, we're not moving. But for some, and that's basically what I'm looking for, is as long as their nose is activated, right? If they're using their nose, if they're looking for a spot to go to the bathroom, like, I'm just gonna stay there. But if you have a dog that just sits down or lays down or stands here, like Zoe is right now, I'll move, right? Because she's not doing anything to contribute to the cause of going to the bathroom. She's not sniffing, she's not walking, she's got no interest in anything. She's just kind of standing there, right? And some dogs will just come outside and they'll sit. Well, like, we're not getting any closer to going to the bathroom if their nose isn't doing anything or if there's no movement. So for those dogs, I will move around. And sometimes that's just me standing in the same spot and, you know, giving them a little tug on the leash and encouraging them by saying, go potty, or come on girl, or, you know, anything like that that gets them to move their body, because sometimes moving their body will get them to start to sniff, precursor for finding a spot to go to the bathroom. But if that doesn't work, then I will walk around. Because that oftentimes will get the dog sniffing. As you can see now, she actually is kind of sniffing on and off. Of course, she's not going to do it while I'm videoing her, but she's more active in finding a spot now than she was when we were just standing. So that is the situation where I would actually move. Now, I'm roaming aimlessly now because I'm focused on talking into this camera, but generally I would still stay in the general space that I would always have the dogs go to the bathroom in. I'll just kind of walk back and forth, or kind of in a circle. So we're in the same space, slightly larger because I'm moving, but we're just kind of rotating through that space to activate their nose by movement. So those are 3 things that help with your house training efforts. Hopefully those were very helpful to you. They are super helpful in the dogs that we help to house train or potty train. So let me know which of these 3 things was most impactful, or maybe was the thing that you've never thought of before, no one's ever mentioned before, and I would love to hear your feedback. All right, talk to you guys later.